in the budget, and we have had a lot of time to discuss what is in the 48 trillion Uganda's national budget. But again, we cannot fail to give it some time. In the studios, the panelists are already set, and away from the budget, the tensions in the East African region, matters of security again have arose, with the M23 rebels pushing thousands of rebels, of refugees, not rebels, of refugees into Uganda. Across the border of Bunagana, and there were reports that even M23 rebels had actually captured the part around Bunagana border post. And that's a matter of concern, because not only M23, but we all know that the UPDF is in Congo pursuing the ADF rebels and all other insurgents in that region. And that prompted the chairman of the East African Community, President Uhuru Kenyatta, to issue a statement calling for immediate deployment of the regional standby force in the eastern Congo, one, to neutralize the armed elements in that region, and declare the whole of Ituri province and eastern Congo an arms-free zone. That is really a matter of concern. And looking back here, what is happening, the president, His Excellency Yoweri Museveni, skipped the Heroes' Day celebrations to camp in Karamoja sub-region, and it is also a matter of security, what is happening around there. As we speak, he is still in the Renzori sub-region, again on the same matters of security, and that is why we also need to give some time to that sensitive matter around security. Then finally, we'll be looking at what is happening in Parliament. Again, there are reports coming in from Parliament showing that there has been another cash bonanza. The MPs received 40 million shillings each, allegedly, to mitigate the effects, the economic the effects and the harsh economic conditions happening in this country. And as some MPs still insist that they received the money, but a big chunk of the legislators deny that really the money was released. That is a matter we'll of course look at in the second hour. My name is Simapolo, and on the program we have Dr. Gerard Wanzara Werihe, and Dr. Gerard is the head of civic and research and civic engagement at Africa Leadership Institute, one NGO that looks at Parliament. Welcome to the program, Dr. Gerard.
Thank you very much, Apollo Tusime. Sorry for mispronouncing your name. It's okay. It's always a pleasure being here, and good morning, viewers. It's good to be here to interact with you on these issues that affect all of us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a privilege always, Doctor. And it's a profound honor again to have Baguma Richard Tinkasimile on the show this morning.
Good morning, viewers. Indeed, it's an honor. It's a privilege. I don't take it for granted. And I also thank God for it. And like I always say, Allah Akbar.
Wow.
Yeah.
God is great.
Yeah.
Well, viewers, that is our panel this morning. We miss out on views from Honorable Barnabas Tinkasimile, who arrived late and from his trip to Nairobi, and he could not make it to the show. But, well, we have a big and huge panel here to discuss these issues. Let me start with the wrap-up of what came out through the 48.1 trillion budget. A quick comment. What do you think about this budget? Though, like I said, we have had time to discuss the budget, but pick one or two issues, Gerard, which you think really make or stand out in this budget.
For me, what stands out in this budget is the fact that there are some areas we have been crying about, where I believe this time there looks to be some kind of seriousness to put some money there, like in a human development, human capital development. For instance, I saw the budget for education, health, science, innovation and technology, and water coming to about 28% of the budget. For me, that is a plus, but of course, we need to take in interest where does this money go. Right now, we have still dilapidated schools. We have a problem with wash. The other day, I saw the president during his remarks at the budget meeting saying that his surprise since 1996, he sees 36% of children, the completion rate of children in UPE is only at 38%, meaning that 62% do not reach P7. They disappear along the way. So he's asking, what's the problem? So we need to address, we can put the money there, but we need to address the underlying challenges that are not making this money to make a difference in people's lives. I was a consultant for the orientation of MPs on sustainable development goals. I looked at the, for instance, latrine pupil ratio in rural schools. It is very pathetic. The areas where you find 80 children are sharing a latrine with teachers, and sharing with the teachers. So these are the things which we need, because when children are constantly sick, they cannot go to school.
Yeah, true.
So these are some of the things we need to look at. There are issues to do with health, the facilities. I'm seeing there's a plan to upgrade some health center 2s to health center 3s, so they're equipped to ensure that people get access to the water. For me, that is a plus. And then one thing that I can note is that local governments have been struggling with the delivering services, transforming. As you know that their budget has been so small. Even this time I saw the local government budget is about 5 trillion for all local governments in the country. But then the central government would argue that we give them conditional grants to spend. They don't need to have all the money there. But then the challenge has been, when you go down there, even as we are subdividing districts, the services were not reaching the people. So when I saw a 1 trillion and I think 1.05 trillion in parish development model, and a plan to have $100 million in each parish, I was saying
100 million shillings.
100 million shillings in every parish. I thought maybe the recruitment of parish chiefs to ensure that we decentralize further and ensure that there is access to finances
and accountability,
value chain, collecting data at that level. It is very good. But the other challenge I found, recently I was in my constituency in Bubulo County East. When I reached Bubutu, my town council where I read, I was trying to find out, have people formed these
groups,
parish circles, parish development committees? They were panicking because the 17 million they sent the last financial year arrived very late when the financial year is ending. So they're panicking. People don't know what to do. Even the ordinary people do not know that actually they are the ones who are supposed to own these circles and belong there. They think the circles are for the leaders. And then I also discovered that our parish town board has already been split into about 3. So if the 100 million goes there, it is going to which parish? It is going to which parish, targeting who? So I think that this could be a good intervention, but there is need. These are lessons we can learn from countries like China to define who are the poor, where are they found, what are their characteristics, how many are they, and then because you will put 100 million shillings in a parish in Chiruhura, for instance, where people are already organized into their milk cooperative societies, it will add more value, as opposed that if you took that money, for instance, maybe to Mayuge, where people are just scattered. This one is the sugar cane, this is where. So it is a good move.
So you think we still lack the data? I mean, to get to know who needs what.
I think there's still some data lacking. We need to deepen the way we gather our data and then how we disaggregate this data to be useful to people. And then also we need to move away from blanket or holistic planning where the same program that we are doing, for instance, in the cattle corridor is the same one we are doing in, because the characteristics are not the same. Like in Karamoja, have you organized people moving from the pastoral kind
Culture.
of life they are living right now and cattle rustling for them to know that actually I can be in a parish development model. It's a challenge. So many, like for instance, Gol Uganda and some entities are doing training for Karamojong youth on white meat value chain. But now when they are trained and they go back to Karamoja, where are they going to belong? Do they even know anything called PDM or how they can survive in this? So I think the budget looks a little bit people-centered, but we need to address other challenges to do with the data, to do with the speed in terms of implementation and good planning. When we take this money late, is it going to be useful in the financial year or it will come back in the consolidated fund?
Good. Thank you so much, Doctor. And Richard, according to the people behind this budget, this is a post-pandemic recovery budget. Pick out those issues that you think stand out in that budget and tell us whether you think it is really a post-COVID recovery budget.
Okay, I think that related to the COVID pandemic, the economic activity is constrained. The economic activities are still constrained, and therefore the performance of the budget will still be affected by these constraints. The relatively lower level of economic activity across the board. So that's one. The second shock, apart from the pandemic, is the current increase in oil prices. This is unprecedented in some of the...
It's a global trend.
Yes. So the global trends, the fighting in Ukraine and the impact on food and other supplies, and oil and other things, these trends will impact us very much. What also the war in Ukraine has done is that the flows from especially the West, the Europe and then the United States and others, to our countries have been chopped. Doesn't matter whether it's civil society or to government, have been chopped. So there will be even bigger problem.
Let's do an intervention
with external inflows from elsewhere. The other thing is that we have a huge debt. So our debt is reaching unsustainable levels. It has gone to the discomfort levels. Now that, coupled with the fact that the domestic arrears and the domestic debt is also very huge. The money that government borrows through treasury bills, through bonds and others, is high. But because the banks are guaranteed of a return on government money, it means us in the private sector who borrow from banks will be crowded out. So with the constrained economic activity because of the pandemic and the recovery, and the crowding out of any sources of funding for financing for the private sector, this compounds. So we are going to have a challenge really on revenue correction and getting funds either from outside or internally. Now, what is making it even worse is the behavior of the revenue collection agency.
You're right.
And its staff, yes. So one is that they have amended the laws. I was listening to the experts the other day, I think it was from the KPMG and Deloitte and Touche and the others, saying that the amendments to the law are going to impact on businesses very much. Actually, we may see businesses closing, or those ones who are of a global nature going to our neighbors, where the tax regimes are more friendly. But the conduct also of some of the URA staff, because it is increasingly being staffed with soldiers. Supposedly the soldiers are not thieves and they are not corrupt, but they come from Uganda.
They're part of
all of us have related to soldiers or are related to soldiers.
We share
they
the
are part of
fabric.
us. We go to the same schools. We suckle from the same corrupt breast. But they also come with lack of training and orientation in tax things. So the other day I was listening to one, and they said, no, we are not going to do that. Then the taxpayer was asking, but you as well? I said, as the state. And I was looking at this captain, young captain from school, feeling very important. And I said, and I saw the conduct. So I started asking about the conduct of these people. I think my brother Msimbuzi,
Rujochi.
yes, and he's my brother.
John.
So I think he should be looking at this. Otherwise, he's going to fail. That I can promise you. So when you combine these are worrying situations. And so that is the worrying situation. There are also the positives. The focus on industrialization, particularly agro-industrialization,
Yeah.
I think is critical. We need to add value. The problem is we do lip service. And in addition to doing lip service, we do, if you look at, for example, the monies that are put, the safe financing, they call it microfinance institutions, when you look at the amounts of abuse, the levels of abuse, also the funds don't go to the people who will add value to it. They go to speculators. So this cleaning must be done. But the budgets focus in some of the areas.
The fund is put in SMEs. That's what you're
That's supposed to go there. You see, when you give money, when you give money instead of to the people who are doing agriculture and want to add value or farming, whatever, but you give it to people who are going to do money lending.
Yeah.
So it does not bring the value that you are projecting. So that's very important. But the budget on paper
Is good.
is good. Yes, the areas of focus.
Promising.
Yes, human development, human capital development, very critical because when people get money, they will
Then
spend
there's
it.
governance and structure.
Yes, very interesting. As you know, I sometimes run away from governance because governance and structure, I always say, has a superstructure. And at the top of the superstructure, you have power play. And we know the focus of the power play in this country. It is retention.
Oh.
Yeah. So that affects everything else. Economic, social, everything else.
Power retention.
That's the most important. So even all the activities will be focusing on the issue of retention. So when you are talking about budget implications for 40 million shillings allegedly to MPs. But what is it for? It's certainly budget focused. Yeah, you are. If it's true that they got the money to think and work in a certain way, are with the budget. So you can see these things are critical. But if you put the money in the parish development model, really, that would be very important. And you bring it on early. Because if you allocate 100 million shillings to a parish and you have all these processes of disbursing it and collecting it again, but it comes in the third quarter, then really you would have issues, no question about it. So these things need to be looked at holistically, in my view.
Okay.
But for me, I think the most important effort should be on dealing with corruption.
Thank you so much. And I'll ask you both the same question. The budget reading comes at a time when we have been putting pressure on government and the authorities in the Ministry of Finance and elsewhere to at least table a solution to the current harsh economic situation we are in. Some pushing for tax waivers, others pushing for subsidies, but the government stood strong and refused to move an inch. Do you think this is sustainable? Do you think going forward, people will break under pressure and maybe these people are right? The technocrats in the Ministry of Finance who advised the president and said no tax waivers, no what? Let's move on as we are. Looking at the short and long-term interventions in the budget, do you think it is sustainable? Gerard first.
There are some sectors, if they are not handled very critically, they can actually damage the entire economy. And the president knows this because during the State of the Nation address, he talked about it. For instance, the fuel crisis. we all know that there is a crisis created by Ukraine and Russia conflict. And then we have also had the issues of the supply chain challenges, that the production went low during COVID. And when the economy is open, the demand increased, but then the production cannot match the demand. That is right. But then those challenges of COVID, for instance, did not start now. They started last year. So it means that the Russia-Ukraine conflict increased. But also, in Uganda, I have been one person who has been tracking the taxes on fuel. There has been consistent increase
on fuel prices.
Maybe except only this year, but almost every year I've been looking at that product, and it makes fuel very, very expensive. Of course, if you give a waiver, I'm not sure whether it will translate into the low prices, like a tax, maybe a tax break, or reduce on the tax in form of a subsidy. But then we also have cartels around. For instance, in the area where I live,
near the border?
No, in Kampala here,
oh yeah,
we have about 4 fuel stations, the same line. Every day they have been increasing about 90 shillings, 70, all of them the same day. And then they are not restocking daily. So it means that some people also in the oil sector have connived to ensure that they sing as per the perception that the international prices have increased, so they keep on increasing. And so, since we are in a free economy, we have said, let it be, because we are in a market economy. But in the long run, if this fuel hits probably 7,000, you are going to see the effect on all, including consumer prices. And this is not good for stability of this country. There are people who are depending on Rolex for meals. Now the chapati is transparent. So will a person eat one chapati and stay asleep, or stay awake planning to steal? So
actually, criminality somehow has increased. I don't know if you've noticed.
Sure, it has. It has increased.
The level of criminality. Richard, what do you think? Is this position of government really sustainable, or the citizens will break under pressure?
In my language, there's a saying that the mere meromur nchwere nchwerobnus. It's that it's about a hyena which had a chunk of fatty meat that had just come from the fire. Swallowing it meant it would burn its internal organs, but spitting it means losing this very fatty. So I think that's where the government and all of us are. The very tight rope that has to be walked by the people who have to make decisions, economic decisions for this country, within the current economic circumstances, is extremely difficult. However, for me, I think their insistence on keeping it going, I think was a clever one.
Really?
Yeah, I think was a clever one. And by the way, this talk that they didn't increase taxes may not be...
No, they didn't introduce new taxes.
New taxes, yes. And that's what I was telling people. I said, didn't they increase? Didn't they introduce new? And that's a public relations language, usually. And that's why it's this communication thing to create impressions in people's minds. But of course, it's tax administration for me that really is a problem, not that. The other thing is that the taxation on oil, I think we have the highest in this region, whatever the reasons are. However, both our neighbors in the southwest and in the east have made interventions within their oil pricing. We probably can pick a lesson or two from them. What is it they have been able to do with this? It's a very delicate situation, but we need to. And what is worrying, of course, on that is that it's diesel, which has which and kerosene too. So yes, I think they are being stoic and refusing to be moved. For me, I think it is commendable for now, but it's an everyday assessment that has to be done. And it's not cast in stone. It should not be, at least. That if it's in another week or two and adjustments have to be done, why not?
Wow.
They should be done. But I think for now, when you ask, I think they are doing the right thing.
Well, thank you so much, viewers. It is The Dialogue. My name is Tsimapolo. Richard Baguma Tinkasimile is a communication specialist, and Dr. Gerard Werihe Wanzara is the head of research and civic engagement at Africa Leadership Institute, one NGO that does oversight on parliament, and we know them for their parliamentary scorecards, and you've not issued any, and well, hope you will have a lot to put in that report, because a lot is happening now. Well, anything we can talk about the budget, or we should move on? Anything we've left behind, Gerard?
I looked at
maybe the budget speech or anywhere.
Yeah, of course, the theme sounded very well. Full
monetization
of the economy. They're talking about digitalization to reduce on the cost of doing business. They're talking of industrialization. And when you read the budget, actually you see allocations in that area. I also saw about over 200 billion in innovation, science and technology. And they promised to have 3 vaccines coming. You saw what surrounded the vaccines last financial year. So I would like to appeal to those involved that this is the time to put this money to the right use, so that we can prove that actually there was nothing wrong with how we spent the previous money. And then I was also perturbed with the allocation on tourism. I saw only 124 billion in tourism. The last year I held, we were disseminating a policy brief on tourism recovery. It involved the Ministry of Trade. And there was an agreement. So many people within the tourism
sector
value chain had lost jobs. And yet, directly and indirectly, over 500,000 are employed there. So, if we ask ourselves 124 billion, where are we going to put it? Are we really serious on recovery of tourism? Because if you go and analyze the budget, most of it usually goes to tourism board, where they go and say they are promoting Uganda abroad.
Put up adverts
but yet things that attract tourism are actually not necessarily that. But what you invest there, what people are coming to see, how safe they are in the places they are going to do, and those that facilitate their enjoyment. Yeah.
Well, I mean it, Richard. Did we leave anything behind? I saw the president emphasize to Parliament that they should support him to now take UPE and EAC to another level, to make it mandatory and free and mandatory.
I think Gerard is the one who made the comment, and I have made this comment severally. It's about the disappearing UPE students. The rate of disappearance of UPE students, I think, is one of the most scary elements of life in this country. Unless there has to be something wrong with the statistics, but to say 1 million or more enter and a few thousand exit within the first 7 years of education, that you have 1 million plus entering here in primary one, and you have a few thousand finishing primary leaving examination. It's a crisis. Where do these people go?
The president now talks about mandatory and free.
Yeah. You see,
the MP should now support him.
For me, it's not about rhetoric. No, these people who enter, where do they disappear? That for me is a fundamental question, and I keep asking this question. But unless somebody is cooking the statistics, there has to be a problem. 1 million people are many. For them to reduce to a few thousand within 7 years is scary. And we should be. So for me, if you want to make it mandatory and free, the one which is available has hundreds of thousands of human beings disappearing in the pipeline, what will be different on the other one? Is a question we need to ask. And so I would love to have free and mandatory education. I would love to, obviously. And the members of parliament should support it. Agreed. For me, it's the rhetoric that does not mirror the reality.
Wow.
I think it's a critical issue we should be talking about.
Wow. Thank you so much, viewers. Let's now shift gears and move on to security in the region. And this is very, very important. I told you, and you know it, the rebels acting around Bunagana and those areas, Ruthuru province, the M23 rebels this week and the other week seem to have, I don't know, they seem to have picked momentum and even captured some area, pushing thousands of refugees into Uganda. But again, we are talking about successes on our fronts. UPDF, deep in DRC, Eastern DRC. But here, along our border, it's a mess. And then you listen to those sentiments from both sides, Rwanda and DRC. Soldiers attacking Rwanda, border post in Rwanda, and then the tensions between President Paul Kagame and Tshisekedi, it is not really good to that side. And it tells about what actually is happening in the East African community. It is not good. Gerald.
Apple, a few months back, if I've not forgotten.
Actually, there have been accusations that we may be supporting the rebellion around Bunagana.
Yeah, there are those allegations, and when the Congolese were rioting, I saw them burning our flags and
even the posters
of our president. But of course, I and you don't know what is whether it's true or not. But I want to take you back. Around Feb, we were here discussing, or March, when DRC entered the EAC. I told you that it is a good thing for the DRC to join the East African community. But I also cautioned the fact that are the leaders in East Africa dealing with each other honestly? Because we have this situation even before DRC came. I gave an example here where one of the leaders closed the border for 2 years and he was not bothered. And then we have had these areas where we begin blocking each other's trade, yet we have already moved up to the common market
protocol.
Meaning labor, we can do trade, labor and so forth, moving freely, and the factors of production. But it is not happening. You see our milk blocked, our the poultry products blocked. Yeah, then recently I saw when President Suluhu came here, that's when the president was saying, now you allow our sugar to access your markets and things like that. But where is the problem? I told you that this, if we are building the East African region, let's have strong values upon which we base ourselves. I was watching yesterday when the European leaders visited Ukraine. Ukraine is a candidate, Moldova, to join the EU. But they're saying, well, you have been showing, yes, positive steps. But then we want to bring members who meet all our values. For instance, we're even looking at the Transparency International list of Ukraine. So 120 out of about 100 and something, which is not a very good indicator. Yet they say, for you to join us, you must fight corruption decisively. For you to join us, you must promote human rights. You must demonstrate free and fair elections. You must demonstrate commitment to respect trade, then copyright laws and so forth. Now, for us in this region, we are becoming big, but based on what? We bring South Sudan. What are the values of South Sudan? We bring DRC. Now, the other challenge is, I was looking, DRC has about 124 rebel groups in Eastern Congo alone, scattered all over. And most of them have been operating in North Kivu, South Kivu, and Ituri. But this conflict of M23 is in this area neighboring the DRC. So what does it show?
Neighboring the neighboring
Rwanda
and Rwanda.
and Rwanda. Now, you all know that Rwanda is a very small country, okay? Even in terms of resources, it's very small. Could we say that there is something special that Rwanda has in Congo?
Special interest.
Special interest, economically, okay? We know that there are those in Interahamwe who fled to the eastern DR Congo. And Rwanda accuses the DRC forces of fighting alongside this.
The Interahamwe.
But I remember when President Chikwete was the chairman of the African Union, he wanted that to resolve this matter because these people, the former Interahamwe who were in Rwanda, in Congo, are citizens of Rwanda. There was that discussion at the African Union. Can we have an open discussion about their status? But I think the president of Rwanda declined totally and said this, either they disarm, but we cannot speak. But I believe that in a conflict which is not ending like this, don't they have issues to address? So as a region, I think I commend President Kenyatta for what he has taken to say that let's have a regional force, but from which countries? Because there are these accusations. Right now, maybe the only credible forces I see, given the circumstances, could be Tanzania and maybe Kenya itself. Or maybe even, but Burundi, there is already a conflict which has not yet healed between Rwanda and Burundi. So the two parties that are maybe trusted could be Kenya and Tanzania.
Not Uganda, not Rwanda.
I don't believe so, because there are politicians in the DRC in Kinshasa who claim Uganda is also involved. And that is a concern.
So even the discussion or the decision to send a regional force may not resolve this.
Yes, and also there is this saying, okay, the President Kenyatta, that we make that area
an arms-free zone. Demilitarizing the whole area.
And then at the same time, we hear there are 124 rebel groups.
It's not
M23
easy.
is only one.
It's only one.
Are they in touch with all of these ones?
Okay.
Those are the questions I raise.
Richard.
More than 120.
Looks to be very serious.
Yeah, more than 120 militias. Some of them really not with political agendas. Yeah, they are not rebelling about anything. They're just protecting.
And others are actually looting.
They are just protecting economic territories, yes, and interests. But you see, first of all, the lack of effective government in that part leaves a vacuum. And where you have these resources, then vacuums will not be allowed to happen. People will occupy those vacuums. Secondly, while we only look at the regional players, there are a lot of international players because of the strategic resources that are in Congo, and particularly this part. So the role of international players who have economic interests, but also who have very strong lobbies, and therefore distort the policy positions.
But to some extent, with the Congo joining the East African community, somehow there is a chance, there is an opportunity to edge out those foreign interests and now work as a bloc.
Yeah, the chance, yes, there is. It's a difficult chance. They are also, the international forces don't work alone. They also work with regional and national agents. So that's also quite important to look at. But you see, we haven't been, none of us has been really saying who M23 is. And whether M23 is the same 5 years ago and the same now, or whether indeed that most likely happens, there is a metamorphosis of the outfit. And what the role of the other militias, the 120, are. That Uganda and Rwanda and Burundi and the SADC neighbors will have interest in the DR Congo is obvious. because what happens threatens
Yeah.
the security and well-being of the neighbors. Now, for Rwanda particularly and Burundi, who are geographically small, territorially they are small, but also economy-wise, oftentimes you have to have to do the best mechanism sometimes of defense is offense. So you don't wait
To be attacked.
No, you look at what is going on, you map, you do the scenarios, you do the assessments, you look at your intelligence, and you say, in order to neutralize this threat, I have to go in there, like we were in Somalia. Yes, you have to deal with the Al-Shabaab, and your intelligence will start from Somalia, because that's where they have a backyard and a rare operational area. Same. So you can't expect Rwanda, for example, or Uganda to sit, or Burundi, to sit and wait for these to come. Just the refugees, the flow of refugees will tell you, please, just wake up. So these things, now, the Kenyan president and the East African Standby Force, we need to assess very carefully. And I need to say that because I am part of the United Nations Association and the World Federation of Vienna Associations. We have been discussing the force, the UN force in Congo. It's the largest, it's the longest, it's the most expensive. If we evaluate that against what its achievements have been, and then, so the East African Standby Force, you have talked about the challenges of how it is going to be constituted. In fact, Gerard, you have to be very careful about Tanzania being acceptable to some of the players in the region. No, not necessarily. So can Kenya commit its sons and daughters to shed blood in this region? Who else will constitute the standby force? There are so many mechanisms under the Great Lakes Conference, under the East African Community, under all these standby mechanisms, even by bilateral ones. So we need to be very, very careful. And Gerard said something that I think we usually...
Yes, we need to go for a break.
Yes, that we don't usually answer as we go to break. There's these militias and the M23 who say, look, we emerged and we are here because we have to be protected. We are slaughtered and massacred as a people. This is self-defense. Is that really empty talk? Or must also we deal with those ethnic murders? Or should we close our eyes and say, oh, it's a militia? It was just, for instance, from the presenting anything in the talks in Nairobi. It's not a state party, but it exists.
They may have their reasons.
We cannot dismiss them that for so many decades they have been there and they are empty-headed and they have no cause. Okay. We must also recognize that they exist and we must listen to them.
All right. I think that's what they have been saying all along, that the 2009 agreement was not honored by the DRC government. And
the talks this year, I think it was what, March or April? They were not allowed to even present a petition.
All right, viewers, this is the dialogue, but we are going for a short break. When we return, we again look at briefly this matter of security in the region, and here back in and what it means to our security here in Uganda, the national security. But again, the issues coming out of Parliament are really, really, really hot. The 40 million allegedly given to MPs around this time actually do not threaten the integrity of Parliament, but again seem to be working against the inside politics of the National Unity Platform. My name is Simapolo. We'll be right back with those topics.
Soul Television, Femun.
You have to go direct.
Welcome from the break. This is the dialogue. My name is Simapolo, and in the studios this morning we have Dr. Gerard Werike Wanzala, the head of research and civic engagement at Africa Leadership Institute, and we have Richard Baguma Tinka Simire. He's a communication specialist, but he's popular in the NGO world, pushing agendas in nutrition and other health matters. And we are looking at a very eventful week, but the budget week, but we were looking at the matters of security, especially in the region, and looking at the statements, the statement from the chairman, the current chairman of the East African Community, President Uhuru Kenyatta, imploring East African countries to immediately put up a strong regional force to counter the rebellions and armed militias operating in Congo and elsewhere. But I mentioned, Gerard, the issue about President Museveni rushing to Karamoja sub-region and then now to Rwenzori region, and again the influx of refugees, then the accusations from the DRC, I think it was Parliament even saying UPDF should actually leave Rwanda and Uganda
to ratify the
Rwanda and Uganda should vacate. It is now becoming very serious. At a point where we're constructing roads in Congo, having a united force between the Uganda and DRC armies operating in Congo, and now here we have M23 resurging and allegedly capturing an area around Bunagana. What is it? And let's give it at least 15 or 20 minutes, then we cross over.
First, I actually commend the initiative by the government of Uganda and the government of DRC to strengthen our bilateral relations even outside the EAC, that we have the two agreements. I was only disappointed when the lower house in Congo refused to ratify this agreement. But I think it is for a sightedness for Uganda to build a strong relationship with DRC, because one of our biggest markets was before 2013 was South Sudan, and of course we had Congo. Now Congo being an emerging market, there was no problem with us making roads for security and for trade. But when I look at this conflict, it's not going to end now or tomorrow or even within 1 month. We need to really do a critical analysis of the actors, and the actor, and also by actors he said it, we also need to look at the global actors, because it's not going to be only solved by us. You know that in Eastern DRC there are people who come with private planes and land there in the territories of various militias, coming to pick gold
and other
minerals in there. There is a lot of timber in Congo, a lot of resources. So what we need to do is that, as East African Community, within the framework of the regional cooperation, within the framework of the International Conference for Great Lakes region, because you know that parties like Angola, Zimbabwe, they are all involved, they have interest there. In fact, some of them have not been paid for the role they played fighting foreign forces in Congo on the side of the government of DRC. We need to work within the framework of the African Union. So that if we go, and then he talked about MONUSCO, the UN force, it has stayed there longest. So I believe that all parties in the conflict and all parties in the peace efforts need to be involved, because peace building does not take one. It takes, first of all, negotiations, okay, reaching an agreement. Now when you reach a peace agreement, there's a ceasefire, then the final peace agreement, and then you have other steps that follow. Rehabilitation, because if you don't rehabilitate people who have been in conflict for long, you'll have challenges. Like we AFRI were involved in Karamoja under the civil military cooperation project supported by the European Union. We supported the UPDF to observe human rights in disarmament. We brought together the communities and the army. But now, after doing these peace building initiatives, there were no efforts to have sustainable peace. They had to address issues of
Consolidate the gains.
livelihoods, reintegration of these warriors into society, and then also cross-border
And here
security.
again, it is resurging.
It is resurging.
Conflicts are
Yeah,
resurging.
the last 3 years it has been very chaotic. And now it is a bigger threat. So the same there. In fact, it's a bigger problem than even ours, because ours we can solve it if we put all the resources there.
Baguma, the accusations from the parliament in Congo that we are supporting the rebels, we should actually leave their country, Uganda and Rwanda. Would they undermine the whole idea of integration and security in the region?
Yes, yes. First of all, I think there was a lot of misinformation, but I think there was also indiscipline amongst some of our players here who tweet things that sometimes affect the entire information and therefore decision making chain. I have experienced this in Ethiopia because, as you know, I partially live in Ethiopia. So a tweet generated a crisis for me on the street. You are in this car that is a Ugandan car, and the people on the street are slapping it. Yeah. So I think the management of information here was shabby. There are already existing suspicions.
I saw a tweet that M23 are brothers. And
Yeah. There were already existing suspicions because of the earlier challenges we have had. So if in the middle of that you throw in a live match, you are likely to generate a fire. Of course, you may be intending to generate the fire, while all of us may be thinking this is a mistake. It might be intentional, deliberate, and aimed at achieving a certain objective. So I don't know, but I think that was part of it. Of course, the other thing is that the International Court of Justice has actually judged us through a legal process that we have committed crime. So those things are in the heads of people. There are some groups that will also generate some of these banning of flag things are not innocent. Sometimes they are promoted and engineered to create a certain impression, but they do create that impression. And you see this being coming up in where you have formal decision-making processes like in Parliament. So we need to manage our information better, in my view,
here in Uganda.
but also deliberately manage information flowing on the other side, or at least influence information going on the other side. We need to deal with the challenges of the suspicions and the crimes also that we have been actually judged to have committed. We need to make so for me, interventions there, interventions of an economic nature, interventions of a military nature, that are in partnership with the forces there, they make a lot of sense. Okay. And you see, if the UPDF maintains the discipline that we know here, if it maintains it across the borders, even the Congolese people will be making testimony for the work of the UPDF. When we do the roads and we do the trade and we treat the refugees here proper and they go back, they will be our ambassadors. But these efforts need to be combined with our discipline.
All right, and the ping pong between the Rwandan government and the DRC government. If you've had
I said we must deal with the situation on the ground. We must deal with the reality. There are millions of Rwandans in Congo who went en masse and are bitter and are frustrated and want solutions, want to come back, We saw the question of the Rwandese refugees here, which the Rwandese government then treated as a small and ineffective problem. It eventually led it to overthrow and death and things. So this must be dealt with. But we also have the issue of the ethnic groups that were divided separated and put in two different geographical entities by the colonialists. Yes, we have Rwandese in Tanzania, Rwandese in Uganda, Rwandese in Congo, and Burundi, and we have the largest population of the Bakonjo in Congo. We must be honest about these distortions that happened then, and the way they have been exploited by our own selves for very selfish and narrow interests, but also with foreign interests. He talked about planes going into the Congo. When I went to the Eastern Congo, I was surprised about at how many airstrips they had. And you know, when I came back, I was thinking, and that was quite a number of years ago, because we flew one time to go to Kitgum. We used to fly, we couldn't go on the road because of the Joseph Kony issue. and landing in Kitgum was a problem, you know, we circled, they had to chase the cows which are on the landing strip. And I said, but look, this is like this, where there's a government in charge. The other side, there's no government, but you have people investing in good
airstrips
and well-maintained airstrips. What is the return?
Wow, that's a big question. So it looks like the idea of integration should not only look at trade and maybe other issues, because we've been talking about tariff barrier, non-tariff barriers, we're talking about common market, we're talking about single monetary what. There's a big concern around how we integrate socially. Those like you talked about, the people who went to Congo, the Rwandese who went to Congo in early years, in those early years. So there's a lot to do, much more than rushing for single customs, what.
No, I think Apollo, we should be very careful about throwing out dirty water with the baby. It's likely that you find a basin very dirty with dirty water and you throw everything out where there was a precious baby in there. The economic vehicle is one critical vehicle for driving integration. Because economics is a very selfish thing. Human beings behave very selfishly when it comes to their economics. And it will drive the other thing. So if the economic vehicle is perhaps the most attractive and most movable now, why not deploy it? But we must also deal with those other political and social challenges that we have, because these relate to each other. So for example, for me, a road or a railway, or even a good water transport system will definitely increase interaction, therefore increase the social, harmony. But it takes time, but it also takes very specific, deliberate and intentional investments. Sometimes we get diverted by personal egos and historical disinformation and distractions, by these projects of power and politics, and we kill
the baby. One quick comment and we move on. Gerard, do you think we are on the right track for integration, looking at what I said, leaving alone those social issues, but then we push the economic issues in front?
Those things, those issues, like you said, are interrelated. Like economics, infrastructure can be very good vehicles for eventual political integration. But for me, the only caution that I have is that, well, I have seen most of our politicians. I contested for Yala in 2017. Most of our opponents were saying, big numbers, yes, market. We want to bring, I will go to bring South Sudan to bring this, They are only talking about the size. And then the population as increasing the market. Okay? But we need to look at when you come, which value are you bringing to the federation? And with the existing members, are there those things we are doing that cause other members to come and join us? And how do we sustain what we have achieved? Okay? So if we say the common market, the customs union is not working on the common market, can we go ask ourselves why? As we move forward, we also try to ensure that what we already have moves smoothly. So for me, that's my only concern. growing, yes, you can grow, but later you can disintegrate.
Yeah, true.
Like
It's
the
easy.
EAC disintegrated before. So that is the only caution that I have.
Well, thank you so much, our viewers, from wherever you're watching. And you can follow us on YouTube live stream. You can also use the social media, Salt Media app and interact with us. Send your comments and messages on our Facebook platforms. And elsewhere, we'll be looking at those messages later in the program. We have to cross over, gentlemen. And it's unfair, but I'll start with Gerard, because he works with an organization that oversees Parliament, and whatever is happening, the performance, the integrity, I think all those come out in your reports. And we'll be looking at this matter that is really becoming, that has been viral all through this week. The 40 million saga coming out of Parliament, and it comes at a time when the citizens are stressed with the economic, stress, and we had again looked at that allocation of mean to cater for the allowances of members of Parliament starting next financial year, and the citizens were like, now the legislators are now looking at how they can survive while we really struggle this side. Now here comes this 40 million cash bonanza. The opposition national unity platform came out with a statement alluding to the fact that their members have testified that they really received the money. But the Parliament spokesperson, Chris Obole, also came out with a statement that they know nothing about this transaction. That actually, if it actually happened, they should be using their committees in Parliament, accountability committees in Parliament, or the office of the IGG to sort out the matter that is illegal. Gerard, what do you make of this whole issue?
Apple, this is a very challenging question, but I will take our viewers and our leaders who are listening there, that we have in Parliament what we call the rules of procedure that run the Parliament. And then we also have, under the rules of procedure, what we call the Parliament Code of Conduct. Now, the Parliament Code of Conduct actually begins with the oath that the members of Parliament take, the oath of allegiance, that I will protect, defend, and promote the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. Okay? Now, under that, if you follow, MPs are supposed to fight corruption, to use their mandate to fight corruption. They are not supposed to take a bribe to influence the decisions that they take. They are supposed to run parliamentary business with openness. Okay? They are only prohibited from releasing that information that someone maybe testified in them, they gave them in the camera, but they can use it just to protect the person. But then they're supposed to execute their mandate with openness. And then they're supposed to do their work by winning public trust. Now, at this time, when citizens are being told to be frugal, economize, use the little you have, the leadership of this country at every stage, at executive level, Parliament, should also lead by example. Should lead by example. It is alleged that actually all MPs from both sides of the house received this money. But also the press news say the 40 million for the ruling party MPs was given in the bank accounts, while the opposition MPs allege they were given this money from a residence of one of the leaders of Parliament. I cannot verify this, but neither say it is truth. But if I look at a leader like Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi of Butambala coming on NBS frontline and saying, yes, a number of MPs from the National Unity Platform came to us we sat, and the president of the party, we told them, if you have received this money, we have received. We said, if you have received, take it back. Then I see the opposition chief whip saying, after the MPs were told, I sat in my office the whole day waiting for them to bring the money. But I did not see them. So it means, you know, if this comes from the leaders, then I don't take it as a lie. But now, if we go back to the rules of procedure, interested parties, can't they bring legal action against the leaders of this country? I think this is very long, because if we take money before to influence the way we do our business in the House, it means we are not going to pass pro-people decisions. Parliament is interested with making laws. And these laws are supposed to be blind, to favor everybody. But if I'm influenced, I will make a law which will have eyes, maybe either punishing the other and leaving the other. Then I will make a budget to satisfy, and then there are reports that this money was a payment for a supplementary budget that was passed in January. I think as a country, if it is true, we need to take reflection. Otherwise, if there is loss of public trust in our institutions, it will create a separation between the leaders and the citizens, and the future can be disaster. This happened. We have examples in Burkina Faso, where citizens lost interest in the parliament, in the executive, and they set the parliament on fire. We don't want this to happen. But
Gerard, this is not the first time. Parliament, the integrity of parliament is questionable. It's not the first time they are receiving a cash bonanza or a handshake.
In 2005, when we were amending the constitution, there were reports that 5 MPs had received 5 million to amend the constitution to change the term limits.
To remove the term limits for president.
Some of us did not have evidence, but I remember that time I was on the Capital Gang, one of the ministers, senior ministers from Western Uganda, told Norbert Mao that, hey, I got this money and we drank it together. It is me who sits in parliament and who is supposed to amend the constitution. Why should I take it to my constituency? I said, maybe this is true. Now, since then, we have had the amount of money increasing. We had this unfortunate situation in the last parliament when COVID came. And then when we were all under lockdown, the leadership of parliament decided to give each member of parliament 20 million shillings to go and masquerade like they are donating on their own, until the information came that, oh, this is actually taxpayers' money. But many of them were parading themselves. They spent 2 million, out of 20. Then they come with a truck of maize flour and claim that it is their money because they are so sympathetic to the people. Until it became so, maybe it's because the time was for coming to election, the president said, you return all that money. So it is very embarrassing. If we are doing this, violating all our parliamentary code of conduct to do this, if it is true, I should not be victimized from Africa because I've talked about. I don't have evidence, but if I'm to take what the NUPE MPs are saying, that is true. It's really annoying. It is immoral. If I'm to borrow the words of Olaro Tunu, he said that this country is suffering a moral crisis, which we need to address.
Richard, the integrity of parliament is again questionable with this cash bonanza allegedly given to members of parliament, 40 million each.
Actually, the debate that it's like a relay. It's like a running relay. The debate that we had just been having was about benzes. A few billion. Yeah, a few billion.
1.8.
Few billion.
No, 2.8.
A few billion shillings for some cars. Yeah, so we were just having having that debate. Then the 40 million shilling debate comes, or discussion. I'm told that in Parliament, they are investigating the staff who may have been the source
Of that information
of the
about
information
luxury vehicles.
about the vehicles. And they are going to be punished. So if you have that kind of mindset,
Yeah. If it is a procurement that is illegal, why now prosecute?
why would you be punishing anyone?
Because it is public funds.
Yeah, and so if there is that mindset and those actions, how would anybody be surprised if 40 million shillings found its way in people's pockets? And you see, the issue has actually not been that members of parliament are getting money. I think we are getting used to that. The issue has been around returning the money by
NUP.
the NUP MPs. And you see, if I'm given 40 million from a residence, and it's gratification for passing a supplementary budget that was passed, how many, 3 or so months ago, how is that going to work? What is the practicalness of it? I did my work a couple of months ago, and I have been given a token of appreciation for my work, and you're telling me to return it to a certain residence. By the way, the residence where the money could have been given could even have been a safe house, and the residence is closed now. It is for operational reasons to do such projects and activities. So where do I bring them? I bring it and put it back on the gate. Now the leader of the chief whip says, "Bring the money to me." Did I get it from you? Because first of all, if I bring money to you, I'm confessing that I got it. But if I got it from a residence, which probably was a safe house for operations like these ones, there is even no evidence. Why do you want me to incriminate myself? So again, this is playing politics. Once again, this is again NUP playing politics and being as dishonest as the people who may have taken. We don't know that they do. But being as dishonest as the people who may have taken 40 million. That me, Chief Whip, Honorable Nambeshe, I'm waiting for you to bring money. Which one?
No, there were confessions.
But by who? It was a one Mwanga Chivumbi on a television set saying we were told. Told by who?
Members, they are members of parliament.
We don't know. It's an allegation by a one, like I'm seated here before this camera. And I come and make a statement, then it becomes a fact. Is it? So we also have to check. Is Honorable Chivumbi politicking and speaking for the cameras? Or did he get it? If
again,
the ruling party members got money in their accounts, that can be traced.
But again, if it is politicking, then you would also look at the risk of a senior leader like he is. Choosing his fellow.
The Honorable Mwangachivu?
Yes.
Taking a risk of a rumor?
Yes.
And you think me, I will pay attention to that, Apollo? I am not going to pay attention to an accusation from the Honorable Mwangachivu. No. That one I will not. Not me. I will. The Gerard, please take that one. I want another leader. Not that one.
Specifically him?
Not that one. No, and his ilk. No, that some of the people who sit in parliament are elsewhere, when they make statements, I really pay much attention to them.
He's not alone.
So yes,
from their statement, NUP statement, they said that an emergency caucus of their leadership of the party sat and resolved.
But you also know,
wait a minute.
You also know that their statement has been challenged and they are starting to speak different language now. You know that. Even
in their statement, they allude to the fact that they conducted an investigation, that they investigated themselves. They investigated and with evidence made a decision that those who have received the money should take it back.
I am also saying the new president gave them 48 hours.
I am also saying that me and you know that statement has been challenged.
Who by who?
By some NUP MPs. And they have saying thank you very much for your investigation.
Could it be internal
please
politics?
Please put it on the table and bring the proof that you are talking about, and we can discuss returning. There is starting to be second thoughts. And,
but-
and second, words about that.
Richard, do you think that maybe the issue of a payout, of a cash bonanza is an allegation? It may not be true.
I'm saying that.
Okay.
And I'm also saying that why that was not catching our attention is it has happened before. So that is not news in itself. What was the news was the instruction, the decision
from
to
the
return.
principal.
That is what has generated the news. But about MPs getting a cash bonanza, this one, we have experienced this one repetitively.
So-
this one said from
From 2005.
How many years is that? We have been going through cash bonanzas for more than 1.5 decades. So even as in the information
So
world,
you agree, you admit that it could be possible.
that's what I'm saying. That it, and you see that's the word, the beauty of the word could or may, which you say it could be possible. It means it could be not possible. It may be truth. It may not be truth. So that's why I'm saying, where's the evidence? Bring the evidence. You investigated. Bring the evidence as a result of your investigation. Because these ones who are saying, you are lying, we did not receive money, bring evidence. So that's why I'm saying, yes, and if it is true, it adds to the lowering of the image and standing of MPs and parliament in the public realm. It adds to. By the way, whether it is true or not, anyway, it adds.
Okay.
Whether it is true or if it's not, it has already gone out there, judgment has already been passed, finished. And but for me, it is what brings it to become news is the intervention
Of the leadership of
to say. And if the intervention, if the leadership of the NUP cannot actually prove that this allegation is true, then what do you do as a leader?
What about
because what do you do about the instruction? Do you retract it?
What about the
Do you
silence?
confess that I was duped?
What about the silence on the other side?
Which one?
Especially NRM and FDC and other parties.
What do you want them to say?
They're not saying anything.
What do you want them to say? They want, he who alleges has the
Duty to prove.
absolutely.
Why can't they come out and
Why? You have made an allegation. Bring proof. Why should I be suffering with your allegations? It means every allegation I will be running. So you will be making me dance around allegations. So prove.
So, Gerard, does this single incident tell of or give us, can it give us a faint picture of what the integrity of the 11th Parliament would be, especially that it is a new Parliament with a new leadership? Because I ask you this question basing on some comments that have been coming out, that if it was his soulmate, rest in peace, Olanya in charge, that maybe we couldn't be receiving these reports or allegations.
Well, may his soul rest in peace. I'm not a god to know what would have happened under his administration. But one thing I knew about when he was campaigning to be Speaker of this House, he said he wanted to restore the image of the Parliament, and I think in his own opinion, he thought the image of the Parliament had gone low. He emphasized research, the MP's research, and then he also emphasized taking back the powers of the clerk to allocate MPs, travels, the needs for training and capacity building and so forth, so that he doesn't hold them in the office of the Speaker the way it was happening in the previous administration. So those were positives. But also, I can say this Parliament, according to the induction workshops that have been taking place the last 2 weeks, of course, it's also interesting that the orientation and induction is taking place a year after the Parliament has spent a year executing its duties. In that, they were saying they had a target of passing at least 30 bills.
Is there anything wrong with that? Continuous.
Continuous is okay, but did it effectively happen at the beginning? 2 days, is it enough? No, it was not enough. So I think that Parliament needs enough time for orientation before they begin doing their work. You can go there. You may sample over half of the MPs who may not even know the rules of procedure of that house, or even the Parliament Code of Conduct itself, because some of them come with a mindset of making money. But I sold my shop, I bought votes, I have to make more money. And some of them have been frustrated on reaching here, and they discover their plans are not according to what they planned. So I think the orientation should be strengthened so that our parliament, we get the best out of our parliament. Then the other is that I'm not going to use this one incident to say that the whole of the 11th parliament, first of all, the incident is also still under investigation. If it is wrong, that's fine. But if it happened, it is very unfortunate. What we demand from our parliament is transparency. Like Mr. Obore Chris came on and said that all our budget is appropriated during the budgeting process, and it is administered through the parliamentary commission. If that is followed, that is fine. But sometimes what we hear is that the money may not come from the parliament. It may come from other sources that we citizens may not be aware of. This is also a risk. That's why actually parliament needs to investigate such monies if they occur. They should not just pocket. How about if such monies are negative to our national security, that some lobbyists are using and giving money to infiltrate our political system?
Yeah, that's why I said, why is NRM not bothered? Why are they not making, at least calling for an investigation? They are silent about it.
It needs to be invested by ESO, by police, and the parliament itself to find out if there was money, where did it come from, and for what purpose.
All right, Baguma, let's go back to an allegation that this was a trade-off. That pass this supplementary budget, then we'll give you a token of appreciation later, and it may have come. What does that mean? Because the biggest role of parliament, one of the biggest role of the cardinal roles of parliament is appropriation. Now, if there is influence and possibly for illicit reasons to influence an allocation, what does that mean?
You see, the monetization, the commercialization of politics has been happening, and for a long time. Gerard said he was standing for EAC. If Gerard was theorizing about not giving money, then probably Gerard will never go to EAC. So this monetization, commercialization of politics has been happening, and it has really become cutthroat. So yes, we sell our properties, we borrow from money lenders and all the other sources in order to win a political position. The reality is that there is not as much money.
Which is not a good practice.
As I think you are being modest. It is an evil practice.
Yeah.
I think it should be condemned. Yes, not good is just you are being polite. But it's the reality, and so people have to come and recover. But go beyond what they spent during the campaigns. See what they have to spend now. Each one of us expects to pick some financial something from a member of parliament or another senior politician. It doesn't matter whether it's at church, at a funeral, at a wedding, but on the way for school fees.
I cannot blame voters for doing so, because it is the politicians in the beginning who put themselves in that position that they can help, they can buy ambulances, they can be government. They can be government when actually have local governments and other structures on the ground. I don't blame voters for that.
Yeah, I am very careful about apportioning blame. I'm very careful. But I told Gerard seated next to me here, and I will tell that to every other politician, that if you are not going to give money to your voters, and if you are not going to provide ambulance or any equivalent, whatever ambulance for whichsoever, but rehabilitate a school or contribute to a church or an EG, you are not going to make it as a politician. Whether the voters are blamable or not, whatever they're blaming, that's the reality. And therefore, then you have to spend hundreds of millions in campaigns and also to be in that position. Therefore, you have to have a source of the money. So if a token of appreciation, 40 million or whatever other million, you will take it. And you will certainly oppose the one who is telling you to return it. What did they contribute to your campaign, those ones who are telling you to return it? For them, how are they using the money they are getting? Because those are the questions that come up, you know. That for you, the principle, when you receive money, how do you use it?
From my point.
What are you saying? We are making contributions to you to the secretariat every month. What accountability do we get? Those questions exist and we know they are there. So the contestation, so yes, the question of integrity is key and important. That the integrity of a parliamentary member, but also the institution, is bad, is a fact.
Why can't we? Why are we not blaming the person or the institution that is trying to influence Parliament?
Do we know where the 40 million come from? I don't expect you to answer.
It's not the first time.
Yeah, but we don't know where it came from.
We have several incidents.
We have had cash. We have had so-called cash banana.
2011,
but
2017.
But is it the same source? Is it the same source? We don't know. If the money is coming, we don't know where it's coming from. We suspect where it may be coming from. We can't for sure go and say where it is coming from. But also it could be coming from different sources that we have learned. Let me tell you the example of NGOs. NGOs, for example, have learned that you can influence decisions of Parliament. And you...
Through lobbying.
Yeah, but what do you use to lobby?
No, you can lobby and mobilize.
Yeah, but what do you use to lobby? What are you using to lobby? What are the methods and
you convince people.
And tactics?
You mobilize with facts and.
Okay. Sorry, I'm laughing this way. It's a very serious discussion, but you see why I'm laughing. Is we know, for example, that members of Parliament are worth a certain allowance.
You know it.
When they attend a workshop.
You do it.
We know that they are, you know, a certain allowance.
That is the level of...
Yeah, we know. And it doesn't matter whether the workshop is in Serena, where you walk across. There will be a certain level of fuel refund. Yeah, we know this. So it's this culture of monetization, of commercialization, in my view, that influences this. So it means if I'm in a strategic position, let's say in Ministry of Finance, and I want a supplementary pass, and then their voices will be negotiating for something for themselves out of this supplement. I say, okay, add it, and we pass, and we all move. So what we should be engaging ourselves with. So how do we deal with that?
And that's the question I want to ask you. Do you think there should be it should be a matter of investigation?
For me, it should be investigated, but with a view to doing something. We do. I am part of a private investigations outfit. We don't do investigations that are futile.
It's a futile. It will be a futile.
Investigations that end into nothing.
You think it will be a futile attempt?
No, I don't think so. I think the investigation should be very clear about what its end result is. I don't want to have another commission-like investigation. You know how many commissions we have had.
No, we have offices of the IGG.
And you know how many billions we have spent on commissions of inquiry. But we also have to ask what have been the outcomes of those. So I don't want to have another white elephant investigation into 40 million that will cost more than the money that was collected.
Well,
but also even ourselves as voters, as a population, what should we be doing
Okay.
What should we be doing? What should we be engaged with as civil society, as media, as professional organizations? What should we be doing if indeed we are concerned about the integrity of our representatives? I think this is a dialogue we must engage in with a very intentional objective at the end and concrete actions.
Gerard, should the office of the IG take interest in this matter, and or any other office of in charged with accountability, should it kick off a probe?
I think I've made my position already, that one, the parliamentary leadership, through the director communications of parliament, say that the money did not come from the budget of parliament. And so that's the position of the House. But we have another group that is silent, okay, of the ruling party and some other political parties. Then we have NUP, which is saying our MPs came and they confessed and that we received this money at a residence. So I believe that institutions, I don't know whether it's IGG, whether it is ESO, like I told you, it even has a dimension of security. Because if you don't know the source of the money, and your legislators are saying
it will be 22 billion in total if at all every of the 529 MPs picked 40 million. That's huge.
That's huge. That's quite a bit of money. Because I saw the entire budget of IGG is about 94 billion for the whole year. So it means these guys might have spent it in one day, like almost a quarter of the IGG's budget in one day. So the investigations could go. But of course, the IGG is not under the direction of anybody. So if they are interested, they can investigate it. But like he said, we need serious dialogue about our institutions, like the parliament. If these stories keep on coming, how do we change our parliament for it to build, to regain public trust? That when people go and spend a whole day lining to vote an MP, they know that this institution is so critical to the lives of the citizens of this country. It's a dialogue that we need.
Well, Baguma, your parting shot. We only have 1.5 minutes.
No, for me, a couple of things. The Baganda have a saying that enkoba ze ambugo zezeja mbunya. Me and you as citizens of this country must focus on how do we get ourselves to a better place. This thinking that we shall depend on others, whether we voted them or we didn't, or they're in positions of authority and responsibility, we must lower that. We must be thinking of how do we organize and stop agonizing.
Okay.
Yes, and when we are going to organize Apollo, we must expect stiff resistance from those who are in the positions that they think we are threatening. Wow. So we must be ready for pain. But if we do not go through the pain of organizing, we shall go through even more pain of disorganization.
Wow.
So it's a cost we must go to. And this we must start as early as possible, and especially led by ourselves who are in elite positions. I think we let down our colleagues and populations who expect much from us by acquiescing to all this quagmire that happens all around us, some of which we can push back. I think we need to be prepared to push back.
Thank you. Thank you so much, our viewers. It is an honor and a privilege to have you watching for all this time. And the dialogue is now going out. I must, in a special way, thank my guests, Dr. Gerard Wanzala-Werihe. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate every moment you've been with us. And Mr. Richard Baguma, it's always a pleasure having you on this show. And to our viewers, we'll be returning next week on Saturday. My name is Simapora. I must thank everyone behind the production. And it's a good afternoon and a splendid weekend I wish you.